Hello all, and welcome back to Time to Dice Character Creation, where we make your favorite fictional characters in Pathfinder and Starfinder 2nd Edition. Today, we're rounding out the big 3 Kanto starters with the Blastoise line. I've heard rumors, just rumors mind you, that someone out there actually prefers Blastoise. And while I personally can't fathom why anyone would choose the water cannon turtle over botanical royalty like Venusaur, or a literal fire-breathing dragon like Charizard, we're always happy to bend to the whims of our viewers. So enough rage-baiting Squirtle fans, beware of spoilers, and without further ado, let's get started. So, what do we need to make this shellfish Pokemon? First, with a practically indestructible shell and 2 giant cannons sticking out of his back, we need to be a tank in just about every sense of the word. Next, our turtle turret should be able to blast powerful jets of water, along with a few other surprises. And finally, when our back is against the wall, we'll want the ability to activate a turret for a damage boost and fight back with everything we've got. Pokemon are animals, Blastoise more so than most, considering he's essentially just a giant turtle. So we're starting with the Awakened Animal Ancestry. This gives us 8 hit points, a medium size, and a boost to Strength, Constitution, and Wisdom, at the cost of a flaw to Intelligence. The Awakened Form ability allows us to use equipment designed for humanoids, while Awakened Mind lets us communicate with both people and animals of our species, meaning you don't have to just repeat your own name over and over, unless you really want to. For our heritage, we're taking Swimming Animal, making us a water-dwelling creature with a 20-foot land speed and a 20-foot swim speed. That's a bit slower than most characters, but hey, what did you expect? We're making a turtle here. We're picking up the Ocean Diver background, which gives us an additional boost to Constitution and Wisdom, as well as training in both athletics and ocean lore. Finally, we're taking the Underwater Marauder skill feat, meaning we've trained to fight effectively while submerged. We're not off guard underwater, and we don't suffer the usual penalties for using bludgeoning or slashing melee weapons. Because seriously, what kind of water-type Pokemon can't fight in the water? I'm looking at you, Smash Bros. Squirtle. I know a lot of you are going to look at the mono water typing and the ability to shoot massive amounts of water and immediately scream water kineticist. But you'd be wrong. And honestly, you should feel a little bad about that. But I'll forgive you, just this once. Any pro Pokemon player will tell you need at least some type coverage. That's why we're going with Druid, for a bit more versatility in our move pool. Plus, Blastoise is technically more specially defensive than physically defensive, so Wisdom as a key attribute actually fits better than Constitution. Druids start trained in Perception, Fortitude, and Reflex saves, and they're experts in Will saves. For skills, we gain training in Nature and Survival to reflect our animal instincts, and Medicine through our Druidic Order. We also get access to simple weapons, and with our shell, we can wear up to medium armor. For our attributes, we'll start with Strength at a +2, enough to land some physical moves and still dish out a bit of damage. Dexterity sits at a +0. Turtles aren't fast. Tanks aren't fast. I see no reason to believe Blastoise would be fast. Constitution is at a solid +3. We're less glass cannon and more brass cannon. Intelligence is at a -1, so we should probably leave the strategizing to our trainer. Wisdom is our highest stat at +4. It represents both our special defense, reflected in our will saves, and our spell DC for those special attacks. And finally, Charisma is at a modest +1. Just enough to convince that one lonely Pokemon fan to pick you as their starter. We'll kick this build off with our subclass. Wave Order Druids gain the Rising Surf Focus spell, which conjures a wave that you can ride up to 35 feet, lifting yourself as much as 5 feet off the ground to bypass obstacles or difficult terrain. I didn't think we'd be getting Surf before Water Gun, but hey, I'm not complaining. We also pick up the Shore Step class feat, making the Tide our ally. We ignore difficult terrain from shallow water, and whenever we succeed on an acrobatics check to balance on slick surfaces or an athletics check to swim, we treat it as a critical success instead. In addition, we gain Shield Block, which lets us reduce incoming physical damage when using a raged shield. Animal Empathy allows us to use diplomacy with animals, and the Wild Soul language a secret tongue known only to Druids. For our Ancestry feat, we take Tooth and Claw, giving us more than just basic tackle. We now have a bit of Bite as well, dealing 1d6 damage and sporting the Finesse trait, perfect for making use of that massive dexterity score of +0. And finally, we get to Spellcasting. Druids gain 5 cantrips and 3 spells of each spell rank. For our cantrips, we start with Rousing Splash, which lets us use Life Dew to splash water over an ally. This grants us temporary hit points for 1 minute and allows the ally to immediately attempt a flat check to end one source of persistent acid or fire damage. With Spout, we create a surge of water that erupts in a 5-foot cube within 30 feet, dealing bludgeoning damage to creatures in the area. Any creature that critically fails its reflex save is off guard until the end of our next turn. If cast over a body of water, we can change the area to a 5-foot burst centered on that water instead. Needle darts might need a little reflavoring, but is a solid candidate for flash cannon. We hurl 3 metal needles at a creature within 60 feet, using a spell attack roll against its AC. The needles deal piercing damage, and on a critical hit, may cause the target to bleed. The blast even carries any special properties of the metal used. Cold iron needles, for example, deal extra damage to creatures with a weakness to cold iron. Scatter Scree, or let's be honest, Mudshot, lets us use rocks to tumble into 2 adjacent 5-foot cubes within 30 feet. Creatures in the area take bludgeoning damage on a basic reflex save, and the affected ground becomes difficult terrain for 1 minute. But a creature can use an interact action to clear a square of the rubble. Finally, we pick up Ray of Frost, our version of Ice Beam. We fire a ray of frigid energy at a creature within 120 feet, making a spell attack roll. On a hit, the target takes cold damage. On a critical hit, that damage is doubled, and the target suffers from a minus 10-foot status penalty to all speeds for 1 round. For our first rank spells, we finally get a proper water gun with Hydraulic Push. We unleash a high-pressure blast of water at a creature or an unattended object within 60 feet, making a ranged spell attack roll. On a success, the target takes bludgeoning damage and is pushed back 5 feet. On a critical success, the damage doubles, and the target is knocked back 10 feet. Shielded Arm lets us withdraw into our shell for a small defensive boost as a single action, granting us a +2 circumstance bonus to our AC. It even allows us to use Shield Block without wielding an actual shield, freeing up our hands for anything else we want to do. Finally, Briny Bolt lets us launch a blast of muddy water from our cannon, making a ranged spell attack against the target within 60 feet. On a success, the foe suffers bludgeoning damage and is blinded for 1 round as mud seeps into his eyes. The target can end the blinded condition by spending an interact action to wipe the mud away. On a critical success, the damage is doubled, the target is blinded for 1 round, and is dazzled for 1 minute. And if the target spends an interact action to end the blinded condition, the dazzle condition remains. At level 2, we gain the Kineticist dedication, which we will use for Squirtle's innate abilities that shouldn't rely on power points, like Elemental Blast lets us shoot a pulse of water dealing 1d8 bludgeoning, or cold damage to a foe up to 30 feet away. We add our Strength modifier to damage only if the target is within melee range, and if we use 2 actions, we can also add our Constitution modifier. Like most builds with Kineticist dedication, we won't be taking feats to boost this ability, so to scale it at your table, you'll need to adjust the other choices or use free archetypes. Additionally, we pick up a skill feat, Stifle Flames, to officially join the Squirtle Squad. This grants us a +2 circumstance bonus to checks to extinguish non-magical fires and lowers the DC for flat checks to end persistent fire damage from 15 to 10, or from 10 to 5 with proper assistance. Level 3 druids get both Fortitude and Perception expertise and the general feat Adopted Ancestry, so that we can pick up feats from the Dragonkin Ancestry. If you watched our video for the other starters, you know what this is for, but don't spoil it for the others. You're totally watching these videos in a group setting, right? For our second level spells, we start with Mist. This conjures a 20-foot burst of haze within 120 feet, lasting for 1 minute. Creatures inside the haze are concealed, and those outside are concealed to anyone within. Classic fog tactics, perfect for hiding our next move or protecting an ally. Next up, Elemental Zone lets us set up a classic rain dance. We create a 20-foot radius zone within 120 feet, infused with elemental energy of our choice: air, earth, water, or fire. For 1 minute, any spells we cast with the matching elemental trait gains a +2 status bonus to 1 type of damage they deal, if cast on creatures inside the zone. This bonus is half if the spell wasn't cast using a spell slot, such as a cantrip, focus spell, or an 8th spell. And finally, Sea Search. We strike a surface sitting a 5-foot thick, 10-foot high wall of water 60 feet in a chosen direction. It extinguishes non-magical fires, moves unattended objects of 1 bulk or less, and can shove larger ones. The wave moves another 60 feet at the start of our next turn before vanishing. Large or smaller creatures in its path must make a Fortitude save. On a success, they're unaffected. On a failure, they're knocked prone. On a critical failure, they're pushed 20 feet, knocked prone, and take bludgeoning damage. At level 4, Natural Swimmer lets us swim up and down underwater without treating it as difficult terrain. We're already pretty slow on both land and in the water. No need to cut that speed down any further. To deepen our connection with our natural side, we're taking the Survey Wildlife skill feat. This allows us to study wilderness signs like nests, tracks, and scat to detect nearby creatures. By spending 10 minutes and succeeding at a survival check, we can learn what other Pokemon are in the area. With a success, we can then attempt a recall knowledge check about those creatures, with a -2 penalty, which is ignored if you're master in survival. Who needs a Poke Radar when you've got good old-fashioned animal instincts? At level 5, Druids gain Reflex Save expertise and our first Dragonkin Ancestry feat, Heroic Last Stand. When we have less than a quarter of our hit points remaining, we can spend an action to make our last stand. This grants us temporary hit points equal to our level for 1 minute. While we have these temporary hit points, we gain a +1 circumstance bonus to will saves against fear, and a +2 bonus to our will DC against demoralize attempts. For our third rank spells, we start with Blastback. When we fall more than 10 feet, we fire a torrent of water at the ground that sends a forceful wave and a 20-foot emanation. We take no damage from the fall, as there are cool cushions are landing, but all other creatures in the area take bludgeoning damage. Creatures that fail a basic reflex saves are pushed back 5 feet. This isn't something I've seen Blastoise do in any media. I just think it'd be cool if a giant turtle tank couldn't take fall damage, and it makes sense. Next, Eagle's Cry lets us unleash a mighty roar in a 30-foot cone, dealing sonic damage. Creatures in the area must make a fortitude save. On a critical success, they're unaffected. On a success, they take half damage and are frightened 1. On a failure, they take full damage and are frightened 2. And on a critical failure, they take double damage, are frightened 2, and flee for a round. Finally, Dive and Breach lets us choose between dive or dig, depending on the surface. We leap 10 feet, disappearing in a splash as we enter into the surface like a diver. Then, we reappear from an unoccupied surface within 40 feet, leaping out and landing 10 feet away. Each splash deals the bludgeoning damage to creatures in a 5-foot emanation, but creatures in multiple splash zones only take damage once. At level 6, Advanced Elemental Spell grants us the Pulverizing Cascade Focus spell. We raise 2 towering waves that crash into each other, forming a tall cylindrical column of water that crushes everything caught between them. Creatures in a 10-foot radius within 120 feet take bludgeoning damage, with a basic reflex save to reduce the effect. It's a pretty good stand-in for Surf in a combat use. We also grab the Forager skill feat, ensuring we never go hungry while traveling to the next town's gym. When we use Survival to subsist, we treat any result worse than a success as a success. On a success, we can provide subsistence lifestyle for ourselves and 4 others. On a critical success, we support double that number. Alternatively, we can choose to support half as many creatures in comfortable living instead. Level 7 unlocks another general feat for us, Armor Proficiency. This lets us wear heavy armor, and just like we did with medium armor, we can now pick up a set of Fortress Plate. With it, we can use the Entrenched trait to safely withdraw into our shell, granting a +1 circumstance bonus to AC at the cost of a penalty to initiative. Think of it as an always-on iron defense, because sometimes the best offense is a rock-solid defense. Metal-solid defense? You get the idea. We also gain Expert Spellcasting at this level, increasing our spellcasting proficiency. And what better way to put that new expertise to test than with some shiny new 4th rank spells? Hydraulic Torrent, our Hydro Pump for the uninitiated, conjures a surging 60-foot line of water that crashes into creatures and objects in its path. Targets take bludgeoning damage with a basic fortitude save. On a failure, they're pushed 5 feet away, or 10 feet on a critical failure. It's big, it's loud, and it's everything you'd expect from a Final Evolution's signature move. Unfettered Movement lets us rapid spin our way out of anything trying to hold us down. While under the effects of the spell, we ignore any circumstance penalties to speed. And when we attempt to escape an effect that has us immobilized, grabbed, or restrained, we automatically succeed, unless it's magical and of a higher rank than Unfettered Movement. Finally, Grasping Earth traps opponents in a rock tomb. We conjure Shifting Stone in a 10-foot burst within 60 feet, grabbing at nearby foes. Each creature in the area when the spell is cast, or that ends its turn there, must attempt a fortitude save. On a failure, the creature is grabbed by the earth. On a critical failure, is restrained. While the spell is sustained, grabbed creatures take bludgeoning damage the first time each round you sustain the spell, and restrained ones take double. The Through the Gate class feat at level 8 lets us pick up the Deflective Wave Impulse to shoot attacks out of the sky before they make contact. When we're about to take acid, bludgeoning, fire, or slashing damage from an enemy's attack, spell, or other hostile effect, and we're not off guard, we gain resistance to the damage equal to our level if the damage is bludgeoning or slashing, or double our level if it's acid or fire. The Water Sprint skill feat lets us retreat into our shell and propel ourselves along the water's surface. When we stride in a straight line and cover at least half our speed on solid ground, we can use any remaining distance to run across the level body of water. But we fall in if we don't finish the stride on land, and once we reach Legendary in Athletics, any part of our stride can skim the water surface. With Hero's Edge at level 9, our Torrent ability actually resembles its in-game effect. While we have temporary hit points from Heroic Last Stand, our strikes and spells deal extra damage. Our strikes gain a status bonus to damage equal to the number of weapon damage dice, and our spells from spell slots gain a status bonus to damage equal to the spell's level. This bonus only applies to damaging spells without a duration. We kick off our 5th ranked spells with Flowing Strike. A wave of surging water propels us, letting us stride up to 50 feet without triggering reactions. At any point during this movement, we can make a strike that deals 2d10 extra bludgeoning damage and pushes the target 10 feet in a direction of our choice on a successful hit. It's Water Jet meets Close Combat, except Blastoise knows neither of these moves. Next is Elemental Breath, our take on Terra Blast. We unleash a powerful blast of energy in a 60-foot cone, forcing each creature in the area to make a basic reflex save. By default, the element is random, but if we cast the spell using 3 actions, we get to choose the element. The spell gains the associated trait and effects. The effects are on this screen now. Read them at your own convenience. I don't have time for that. And if terrestrialization isn't your regional gimmick of choice, we can always Mega Evolve with Elemental Form, specifically Water Form, to transform into a medium elemental for 1 minute, gaining the elemental and water traits. Our AC becomes 19 plus our level, and we ignore any armor check penalties or speed reductions. We also gain 10 temporary hit points, Dark Vision, and a plus 18 attack modifier with a plus 9 damage with our unarmored melee attack. And our athletics is a plus 20, unless our own is better. While in water form specifically, we have a land speed of 20 feet, a swim speed of 60 feet, and a fire resistance 5. Our melee attack is a crashing wave that deals 1d12 bludgeoning damage, and after hitting, we can spend an action to push the target 5 feet, as though using a successful shove. At level 10, we pick up Current Spell. As we manipulate air or water with our magic, we can spin off a bit of that elemental energy to form a temporary barrier. If our next action is to cast a spell with the air or water trait, we gain a plus 1 circumstance bonus to our AC, or a plus 2 bonus specifically against ranged attacks, until the start of our next turn. We also get a plus 1 circumstance bonus to saving throws against effects of the air or water trait, matching the traits of the spell we cast. Turns out, when you can make it rain on command, reading the skies isn't that hard, so we will also take the Predict Weather skill feat. By spending 10 minutes outdoors and succeeding on a DC 20 survival check, we can predict the day's weather once every 24 hours. On a critical success, we get detailed and accurate information, plus a plus 2 bonus to survival checks made to prepare for the forecast. A regular success gives us general conditions and whether any major weather events are on the way, along with a plus 1 bonus. A critical failure, however, gives us confidently wrong information. Level 11 druids unlock weapon expertise and wild willpower, which bumps our will saves up to master proficiency and treats any successful will saves as critical successes, a solid upgrade to our mental defenses. For our gentle feat, we pick up Toughness, increasing our maximum hit points by our level and reducing the DC of recovery checks by 1. It's not flashy, but it makes us even harder to take down. As for 6th rank spells, we've already built a pretty strong move pool, so now it's a great time to start reserving those high-level slots for heightened versions of our best spells. That said, one standout addition here is Personal Ocean. This spell creates a swirling sphere of seawater around us, allowing us to breathe, speak, and see normally inside it. While it's active, we count as being in aquatic combat, which gives melee attackers a -2 penalty to bludgeoning and slashing damage, and prevents us from casting fire spells or using fire-based actions. As we move, we extinguish non-magical fires, and we can even attempt to counteract magical ones if we pass through them. Level 12 gives us Striving Rain through the Advanced Element Control feat, giving us access to another fantastic impulse. By spending all 3 actions, we call down a barrage of heavy rain that pelts in a 15-foot burst within 120 feet. Each creature in the area takes bludgeoning damage with a basic reflex save, but the real bonus is the concealment. Until the start of our next turn, creatures inside the area are concealed, and anyone outside is concealed to those within. Whether we're making a tactical retreat or setting up an ambush, this battlefield control feels like a true Blastoise special. For our skill feat, we take Planar Survival, a nod to our experience diving through ultra wormholes. This lets us use survival to subsist even on planes that would normally be uninhabitable. We can find food and water where there shouldn't be any, and on a success, we also shield ourselves and our allies from the environmental damage caused by the plane's general conditions, though this won't help you with specific hazards or magical effects. Still, if you ever wanted your Blastoise to be the team's go-to expert in elemental plane of fire, now you can. At level 13, we pick up Natural Senses, gaining an imprecise sense. Fun fact, turtles can actually smell underwater through a process called buccal pumping, where they draw water in through their nostrils the same way humans do with air. Druids also gain weapon specialization at this level, boosting the damage of all of our strikes, plus medium armor expertise to improve our defenses. For our 7th rank spell, we nab Frigid Flurry, a powerful blizzard attack, to unleash a chilling gust in a line of up to 120 feet, creating a flurry of jagged ice that deals cold and slashing damage to enemies. Targets must make a basic reflex save, while allies remain unharmed. Then the wind carries us along the full length of the line. This movement can trigger reactions, but we're protected from all effects except those that can specifically counter the spell or affect snow. Level 14 grants us Expert Kinetic Control, boosting the DC of our impulse feats to Expert Proficiency, and making them more reliable in combat. Alongside that, Slippery Prey reduces the multiple attack penalty we suffer from repeated attempts to escape, and eventually negates it altogether, letting us rapid spin our way to victory without penalty. Level 15 gives us Canny Acumen, eventually boosting our Fortitude saves to Master Proficiency, plus access to game-changing 8th rank spells. And forget what I said before, this rank is packed with spells you absolutely don't want to miss. Earthquake lets us summon, well, an earthquake, causing chaos and destruction in a massive area. The ground becomes difficult terrain and creatures in the zone suffer a -2 circumstance penalty to attack rolls, AC, and skill checks. At the start of each turn, affected creatures must make a reflex save or fall into 40-foot fissures opening beneath them. Climbing out requires a DC 15 athletics check. Structures and ceilings might collapse based on flat check, dealing bludgeoning damage on a basic reflex save. Whirlpool lets us create a whirlpool. Yes, we're really sticking to the creative naming today. This spell creates a massive swirling vortex of storming waves in a 25-foot radius, 20-foot tall cylinder within 500 feet. The area becomes difficult terrain, but creatures with swim speed can attempt to swim through the area using a swim DC equal to our spell DC. When cast, and each time we sustain it each round, creatures in the whirlpool take bludgeoning damage. Creatures must make a reflex save. On a critical success, it means no effect. A success halves the damage. A failure deals full damage and pulls the creature 10 feet toward the center. And a critical failure doubles the damage and drags the creature all the way in. Finally, Deluge unleashes a devastating water spout in a 40-foot burst within 500 feet, causing flying creatures caught in the area to plummet 50 feet, or until they hit something solid. If their fall is stopped, they take bludgeoning damage equal to the distance fallen and are knocked prone. All creatures on the ground, whether already there or forced down by the storm, must succeed at a reflex save or be pushed 50 feet away from the center. At level 16, we expand our elemental reservoir with Add Element. Not only does this add Flash Cannon to the list of moves we can use infinitely through Elemental Blast, but it also lets us pick up Metal Carapace Impulse Feat for some serious iron defense. Keep in mind, though, that this defense is a bit weaker than we'd have wearing Fortress Plate. The main benefit here is the lower speed penalty and the included metallic shield that lets us shield block. Flavor-wise, it feels like iron defense, but mechanically it works more like Shell Smash. For our skill feat, we take Environmental Guide, allowing us to quickly adapt to harsh climates and extend that protection to up to 5 allies. After spending an hour in an environment, we all treat the natural temperature effects as one step less severe. Extreme cold becomes severe, severe becomes moderate, and so on. If we're legendary in survival, we can protect the same number of allies and reduce the severity by 2 steps instead. At level 17, we unlock Natural Ambassador, which lets us talk to the other Pokemon, even better than before. While we could already communicate using animal empathy, now we gain a +1 circumstance bonus to diplomacy checks when doing so, and a +2 bonus specifically when dealing with other turtle Pokemon. That means we're not just chummy with other water types like Caracosta, but also with land dwellers like Torterra or Turtonator. But not Dreadnought. He's kind of a jerk. We also gain access to 9th rank spells at this level, but I'll leave the spell choices up to you. I trust your creativity to make the most of this power. At level 18, we pick up Advanced Element Control for our final infinite move, Winter Sleet. Bone-chilling, swirling sleet surrounds us, as cruel as the depths of winter itself. Surfaces in our kinetic aura become coated in slick ice, and any creature that moves across the ice must succeed at an acrobatics check or reflex save against our impulse DC -2, or fall flat on their face. Creatures that step or crawl are exempt from this check. If a creature on the ice is critically hit by one of our water impulses or critically fails to save against one, it becomes slowed 1 until the end of its next turn. With Legendary Survivalists, we can survive indefinitely without food or water, and endure severe, extreme, and incredible cold and heat without taking damage. Perfect for diving into the ocean's depths to unlock the Reggie Pokemon, or maybe just crashing burning buildings like a true elemental tank. At level 19, we gain Legendary Guide, allowing us to expertly lead our party through wilderness terrain, granting a +10-foot bonus to our travel speed, ignoring difficult terrain effects on travel, and treating greater difficult terrain as just difficult terrain. But the real power spike comes from Legendary Spellcasting, which boosts our DC to Legendary, and Primal Hierophant granting 2 new 10th rank spells. Indestructibility makes us immune to nearly all harmful effects, except those from artifacts or divine powers. And Element Embodied, which lets us Gigantamax into Gargantuan elemental form. In this form, we gain an elemental trait plus the trait of our chosen element. With an AC of 25 plus our level, 30 temporary hit points, dark vision, and specialized elemental attacks that are strength-based with a default plus 34 attack modifier. Our athletics rises to a plus 36, and in our water elemental form specifically, we gain a 40-foot land speed, 80-foot swim speed, fire resistance 10, and a 30-foot vortex aura that makes water difficult terrain for non-water creatures. We can unleash a melee wave attack dealing 3d12 plus 18 bludgeoning damage with push or pull 10 feet, and a ranged water spout attack dealing 48 plus 6 bludgeoning damage. And finally, we bring this build to its epic crescendo with the Hierophant's Power class feat, maximizing the power points for our most devastating moves, turning Blastoise into an unstoppable force of nature. With Intimidating Glare, we can silence even the bravest opponents with a mere glare. When we do, Demoralize swaps out the auditory trait for a visual trait, and we don't take a penalty if the creature doesn't understand our language. And that's Blastoise, weather shaping, whirlpool spinning, fortress shelled, elemental juggernaut. From Squirt Gun to Storm God, this turtle doesn't just hold its own, it carries its team. So whether you're crashing through the front lines or standing like a wall against the tide, remember, you are the storm. Now get out there, make some waves, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you liked the video, and let us know in the comments who you'd like to see next. But until next time, keep rolling high, and we'll catch you in the next one.